Today's video, we are going to talk about direct mail remarketing with Thanks.io and how it generates extra profit coming out of nowhere. This is a case study that I'm going to cover here where we had a paint business, which is a long-standing client at our firm, and we actually went through the process of doing so-called direct mail remarketing, where you actually send out a letter/package in the mail. Some people call it a shock and awe package. In this case, we test this as well as letters in the mail, handwritten letters, hand-signed letters, and see how much of a increase in sales this will provide for us once we've generated leads off of a standard Google Ads campaign where we get people that call us, fill out the form, and then in which we can send stuff out in the mail to these individuals. Given that if somebody inquires, you can easily get their address of where they're located, you know who it is that you're dealing with, even though you don't ask for their address up front. Or you could ask for their address and get a little bit better data, but that's not what we did in this particular case. So I'm going to go through what the actual differences were comparing Thanks.io, which is an outsourced third-party service, what they call a self-serving ad platform, where you can actually send out direct mail to your consumers, your leads, automatically for you without having to touch a single envelope, as well as doing it in-house, sending out letters to people in the mail, as well as sending packages out in the mail, specifically FedEx packages, which those are guaranteed to get opened by your user base, as is, by the way, handwritten white letter envelope, which is the other thing that we ran here. What this case study will demonstrate is it, first of all, valid to spend money sending stuff out in the mail? Because by default, people's thinking is direct mail, who uses that anymore? When there's tons of money in it, because people have neglected it and they say, oh, I can send an email. I don't need to send no damn thing in the mail, because they get 10,000 emails a day and they get one letter in the mail. And what impact do you think the letter is and gets versus the email? That's why it's still worth it. But then once you get behind, okay, yes, I can make a lot more from the leads I already got by sending stuff out in the mail to these prospects, whether I'm B2C or B2B, actually. It works in both cases. If you've got a customer that's worth enough money, it will be worth doing it. How much should I invest? Given that if you do it one way and spend less, can you make more spending more and investing more into it? Instead of a letter, can we send a package? I go over all those numbers in this video, but the key thing here being the more you could potentially make from a customer, the more likely direct mail marketing, remarketing, that is sending it to people that already responded from your ad campaigns, will be worth it. Given that there's a hard cost, obviously, of sending it out. The stamp costs money, or the FedEx shipping costs money, and you'll either see a return or not based upon how much the customer is worth. And that kind of like break-even point from what I've seen is several $100s. So if you're selling something to customers and you could expect at least $500 or so in customer lifetime value on the initial purchase and subsequent purchases, you can start to look at direct mail remarketing. And it's especially worth it when you reach the 4-figure category, if not higher than that. And if you're doing 5, 6, 7 figures, you're absolute crazy man if you're not going to do direct mail remarketing, because it has the potential to literally double your closing rates on the leads you're already getting by simply understanding how to send out shock and awe packages, which, if you don't know what that is, that's a Dan Kennedy term if you know who he is. When you send a physical box out with stuff in it, swag, case studies, photos, testimonials, all this stuff to really just blow them away. So I'm going to go over the details on that as well. But the key thing here being, this is, if you haven't explored this avenue, it can be a complete game changer for your business, given that it just simply takes leads that you already got and it potentially doubles the amount of sales you get from those same exact leads, even though it's not doubling the profit because you got an advertising cost to go into sending packages out in the mail and so forth. Again, if you're over $500 in product costs, sales value per customer or client value, you're generally going to make more profit with this. It's just a matter of how much. So with that said, direct mail remarketing, where it's sending stuff out to people that you've already been in contact with and through the mail, can as much as double your closing rate with the right approach. That is, where it typically doubles the ROI is it when you have the shock and awe package. Because in a lot of even in B service markets, you're going to be paying $1,000 a lead, $2,000 a lead, $5,000 a lead in some cases to get a lead. Just a standard lead. And you spend $2,500 for a lead, or let's just say, it's more common, $1,000 a lead for a B2B service lead. That's good quality. That's raising their hand, not just looking for information, but hey, I want to use your services. And you're closing at 20% of those leads, which is pretty good for a person that's ready to go, say, hey, I want a quote. But We've seen it multiple times now. I've told basically every client I can about direct mail remarketing because it matters so much. We do remarketing with regular banner ads and all that, and that's useful, but it's still not nothing compared to the direct mail remarketing if I can get people to do it, to where it will literally double your closing rates on those leads, sending them out a package. Why? Because they get the package and they feel bad and like, oh man, they spent so much time on this, or it just simply segmented you out where they weren't sure who to go with. Now they're more confident to go with you itself. But there's something to be said when you send a box with 100 testimonials in it and 45 before and after photos, a letter that says, you know what, hey James, I really like you. I made a decision a couple days ago. You weren't quite sure. I was going to give you well, normally don't do this, but I'll give you 20% off of your order if you won't go ahead and call me this week. Put it through. My manager already approved it. You include that in the box. You include brochures in the box, video in the box. That is like a thumbnail drive or USB-C drive that they can put on their phone and watch. All this stuff. They get this thing in the mail and they're like, holy shit, nobody else sent this to me. That's why it's called shock and awe. It shocks them into at least wanting to have another conversation with the consumer. They weren't quite there. And the best time to send it is generally right after they got the quote or proposal or whatever, so that they get in the mail around a couple days after they got the proposal, so that impacts them while they're still making their decision. They haven't went with somebody else yet. They also remember what they experienced with you already. So, and then this also works in B2C markets though too as well. It's not just about B2B by any means. I've seen this work extremely well in like the real estate space, where you can actually send out a package, and not even after you've contacted people, but after they responded through your website, it also increases your ROI, because a lot of the people that respond to the website, particularly, or should I say more so even with B2C, they're not going to be responding at 100% of the time. They're going to respond, even if you're lightning fast in how fast you reply, you're still only going to get 80-90% reply, and this actually gets and picks up the extra like 20% that you're losing, and you get a few more of those back. But what it does when you set it before the meeting is it makes your meeting closing rates increase substantially. So if you're doing any kind of B2C lead development where you're generating leads and you're doing sales presentations and all this, like in real estate, I 100% recommend sending out a shock and awe package to the person through the mail as soon as the lead comes in, before the meeting happens. So when the meeting actually happens, like, oh my gosh, I was so surprised when I got that package. It was so cool of you. Now anything you say is going to be much more believed, well received. They're not going to be sitting there with their arms crossed. It really opens them up. So that if you normally closed at 20% on the sales meeting, you're going to start closing at least 30-35% just by having spent 50 extra bucks on a package to send them out in the mail like this, which you may say, well, that's too expensive right off the bat. But hey, you can't argue with even increasing your closing rates 20% with something like this, on especially like real estate, where you're going to be making 10, 20, 30 grand on a house sale. It's like, why would you squander your leads like this? And because everybody's focused on, how do I get more leads? How do I get more leads? That's an amateur's approach to marketing. The real pros are, how can I increase closing rates to as high as it possibly can be increased? And then of course, how do I get referrals? How do I get them to buy more stuff? How do I get them to buy from me next time? All this stuff is where the real money's made, not in how do we get cheaper leads. Even though you test relentlessly different places to advertise and all this, but before you do all that, you get everything you can out of the leads you got, because anything else you do to test traffic sources makes it 3 times as easy. Once you, instead of got 15% closing rate, you got a 30% closing rate on your leads. And so you only need half the results on the new traffic sources you're testing than you would otherwise. Anyway, as it comes to the case study that I wanted to cover here, this is a paint business. So where we sell, they have this client sells house paint. They also sell business paint. So they have a branch of their business that sells specialized paint to businesses as well. And what we did here with this case study was we started out with this Thanks.io. I heard of this service and we started testing it out. Anybody who inquired from their Google Ads campaign, we were sending it out to them. And what we did is on 300 attempts, that is letters that we sent out to people in the mail, which Thanks.io has a few options there, but for the most part, what they're doing is they'll send out what they call white mail or whatever. It's a plain white envelope itself, like you would normally get from a bill collector or whatever. And it's not what they call a live stamp. So it's a stamp already on the envelope, and the return address is printed on there. There's a handwritten address on the envelope. And then then in addition to that, the inside of the letter is handwritten. It's really written by a machine, by the way. The machines have been able to do this for a while. And so it looks sort of like, or I want to say mostly like a handwritten letter if you don't know what you're looking for. But really, it's not. If you're halfway paying attention, you can tell it's not really a handwritten letter because it's all like, each line is linear. And they say they try to, of course, can make it look humanized with like strike throughs and stuff like that. But to really make real human handwriting is just like what I have here. It's like up and it's down and some of it's at an angle. If they could get their handwriting machines to have these normal errors that people make, oh man, it would work. It would be amazing, but they don't have it. And I actually looked into it and they don't have it. So it's better to do handwriting by far, especially since we've actually verified this with a split test, as I'm going to go over here. So, and of course, and we know the response here because our response, like we did in this case, you want to use the technique I told you. So you basically mention, hey, I appreciated our conversation. You maybe reference a little bit of that conversation because with thanks.io, you can decide to have it say whatever you want. You can pay on a per piece basis. You don't have to have that same message go out to everybody. And then you have at the bottom of the thing, you say, hey, I like you, John. I'm willing to give you, just for being so kind, I'm going to give you a 10% off discount code here. Here's what it is. I'm going to have it only last for the next 7 days in our system though, because that's our policy if we are going to give out an exception discount. But now you have a way to track it, so to say, to see if thanks.io is worth it. So with that, we got 3 responses on 300 attempts. So 1%. Cost of delivering those letters was $425. So overall, thanks.io is pretty cheap. And ROI was 652%, which for that business, the break-even ROI that we have to have at minimum is only like 350%. So this is really good and really worth our money doing. That said, as I mentioned before, anytime you see something like this, where the real money in business isn't saying, oh, that's great, let's keep doing that. It's like, no, okay, that's great. What else can we do to get more out of it? And get super greedy about it. You don't get greedy about what you're doing and expecting it to do more, but what else can we do? Let's keep this running. Let's try what we did with a slight tweak and see if we can get this running. And we'll just take whatever money we made here. Let's try to do some other testing. That's how real fortunes are made. We had an actual real handwritten letter here. And when I say handwritten here, we didn't really handwrite the whole letter like thanks.io does, but it had a handwritten address on the outside, handwritten return address. Inside the letter, it's printed letter, signature on there, sticky note on there itself. And we did that instead, which, and then of course, what they call a live stamp. So it has a real stamp on it. So it looks like really somebody hand put this letter together. So even though the full thing isn't handwritten, which I'm sure would increase the response even more, we didn't do that because to me, I got to test. The amount of time it would take an employee to handwrite the letter, probably like an extra 30 minutes. So you're adding another $15 to the piece cost each time. I don't know that particularly pays, but it damn well should be tested. We'll just say that at minimum. That's all we did here just for this particular case study, just so that you know. Now, 300 more letters there, handwritten. Instead of 3 responses, we got 9. Basically what you have with something like that, because we've tested it for other companies, practically speaking, 90% of people will open a white envelope with handwritten everything on it and a live stamp because you're normally used to opening like that because it could be something important. It could be from the government, could be whatever. And then at that point in time, because there's some elements of handwritten on the letter itself, the whole thing doesn't have to be handwritten, but there's enough on there that they know was handwritten. It wasn't like a mass sent thing. We're able to get a much higher response. And then our cost of doing that was $1,800 roughly for that 300 pieces. So we're looking at around $6 a piece, which we could have easily got that cost down if we would have did some maneuvering. But with that, we got a 462% ROI on our investment here with the same offer as what was on this one's letter. And so is it profitable? Yes. Is it as high of an ROI as this? No. We got triple the response out of it. Triple the response with the ROI not, being that much less. We got more volume out of it. Yes, the margin was less itself. We still came out a little bit more ahead doing the handwritten thing. And maybe we don't want to manage that, but the potential is there to make more with spending more on each piece. Could have tested full handwritten here. And even though we're not really coming out ahead because the reduction in margin here that we get, given that we're only making money after a 350% ROI, you may say, well, I'll just still go with this one anyway. hey, it's too much work for barely any other gain. Yes, if you don't factor in repeat sales, you don't factor in any other referrals you might get that you could get without factoring in higher organic rankings by getting more customers to go do business with you, ultimately them buying again, so on and so forth. So that's, depending on how you look at it, worth it or not worth it. So we made more, spend more, kind of pretty much break a little bit better than break even on that in terms of extra profit. Now, FedEx package, we did this way. How much more can we sell? Same message was packaged into a FedEx package, which, whereas the white letter might get open at 90%, a FedEx package is getting ads open at 99.9%. Everybody's going to open a personalized to them FedEx package. There just are. And with that, we said 300 packages. This costs a ton of money, by the way, but we still wanted to see how much more this could bring, because we already knew by spending more, we got more. So maybe there's something here that we're really missing. We took our 3 initial responses we got with the Thanks.io to 24 responses, and that cost was $19K to send out those packages. We're looking at like around $30 a packet or so. And the ROI was 247%. So did it lose money? Yes, it did. From an overall perspective here, what can we do to tweak this a little bit so that it would be profitable? Anyway, this case study here isn't showing you that, hey, it's worth spending more than what Thanks.io is providing itself directly, but it shows the potential of, if you were to do a bit more optimization on things, maybe you can get the FedEx package to work. Maybe in our FedEx package, which by the way, had tons of before and after photos of the paint being applied, tons of customer testimonials in it itself, the personalized letter, a brochure on there, and a few other small things, a calendar. So that's what kind of response we got. Now, would we have gotten more? Instead of sending 15 testimonials, we sent 100. Or instead of before and after sending 15 before and after photos, we sent 100. Or instead of a calendar, we sent them a little baby bottle liquor, send them a little bottle of Johnny Walker, build some more of a fact where they feel like they have to give back. I don't know. This is a really strong starting point. When it comes to advertising techniques, you start any kind of new Google Ads campaign, you ain't getting no 247% ROI day one. Almost everything you do has to be, you run it, you figure out what part of it worked and didn't work, and then you get to profitability. So I didn't get the client to keep going on this. We should have, absolutely, but this is very close to profitable. And if we could just find a way to even get a 50% bump in response rate, it is worth it to do it. Bottom line, the more you spend, the more response rate you're going to get. And if your client's worth enough, this is worth doing every time. This is actually with a customer, by the way, that's only worth between like $500 and $1,000 alone. So already at this price point, we can make money with $30 FedEx packages. You start having a client that's worth $50,000. If you're not doing this, you are absolutely crazy, which is what I was talking about before. So the more you make from a customer, the more likely you should do this versus this. If you're only making $500 on the customer, maybe you stick with Thanks.io, but you can see how the higher the investment, the better, more sales are going to pull in from this, given that the more you spend, the more the person's thinking, wow, this is really special. I should really jump on this because this company looks like they're legit or they care about me or whatever. And that's it. And then there's a million ways to tweak this. You got people that do, like, they'll write something in the letter about how their competitors' Chinese products are trash, and they include a little trash can in the box, and it's kind of like funny, and it ties the two things together. It's a lot. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff you could talk about and learn about direct mail marketing in and itself to get whatever I mentioned here and just take it to the nth level, which I'm not going to go into, but it's different than, running pay-per-click ads and learning all that, because people respond differently there. And for that matter, that goes for any channel. What people want to see on a banner ad and gets them to respond in a high rate isn't going to be what's going to be on a YouTube ad. It's not going to be on a direct mail. So you just got to be treating stuff differently. But as far as comparing what it's going to take to make more out of your PPC campaigns that you're running after 2-3 years of running your ads already, and this, it's almost every time going to be easier to get more out of your business adding a direct mail component to your PPC campaign on the back end for remarketing/retargeting than it is to find a new ad that's going to work. Like I mentioned, because any new ad you're going to run, it's not going to be the easy low-hanging fruit opportunities because those are already all picked. And anything you do is not likely to work fast anyway because you need time to optimize it. The algorithm needs data and all this. But not only that, but you're going after more fringe terms. You look at this, and this is a much easier route or path to go SEO to start making more money out of in your company than finding a new place to run your ad. Or at the very least, at some point in time, it'll be more advantageous to you to go after a really, really good advanced direct response, direct mail remarketing campaign than it is to run more PPC ads. That's basically what I'm saying. Whether it's at 6-month point, 12-month point, 36-month point, at someday it'll happen, assuming what you're selling is over $500 in value, generally speaking. So higher, whatever, the more you spend, the more likely it is to help you, and the more you're going to basically want to spend. I mean, if I were making $250,000 from a client when I got it, instead of sending them out a FedEx package, there's ways to send a physical courier out to them to speak to them in person. Hey, I'd like to talk to John Smith. That's very important. Oh, Corey sent me down here to let you know that he's very happy, blah, blah, blah. It would have even a higher impact. Like, what the hell's going on? You could send a box with a chick in it. There's services out there like this that you could do, and you could get crazy with it. I mean, practically speaking, money can buy response from anybody that you want. The only question is, can you get an ROI from it? That is your lifetime value of a client high enough to warrant it? And the more that you can make from a client or customer, the more you should spend, bottom line. So with that said, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. If you want to see another video, click here. It is one of my best ones.